Hey everyone, this is Ana. I am happy to be here at Splitcoaststampers doing this guest tutorial. And today I want to show you how I made this birthday card. And it actually only has a few steps. It's not very complicated to make, but it has lots of texture, lots of color, so it's a lot of fun to make. So for my background, I wanted it to be very colorful and with lots of designs, lots of lines, a little bit of grunge. So I decided to use the stamp set by Tim Holtz called Stitches, and I put them all in one acrylic block so I could stamp them all at the same time. I used clear pigment ink and the paper is watercolor paper. I will be heat embossing, so I added some clear embossing powder. That way, no matter how many colors I put on top, the stitches will always remain white as the color of the original paper. Now I heat emboss, and now I'm ready to add all the colors to my background. I taped the paper down using some purple tape since I will be watercoloring. I am using these watercolor inks by Graphics called Aqua Ink, but of course you can use any other watercolor you may have available. I start by spraying the paper with water, and then I'm using this piece of acetate that I got from my leftover packaging, and just kind of help distribute a couple of the drops from the ink onto the wet paper. And I just kind of smooshed it and spread it around till I was happy with how much color I had. I did it just on the top half of the paper since I'm using a second color that I will use on the bottom half. So you saw that I dried in between the two colors using my heat tool. And now I'm ready to apply the second color towards the bottom half. So I wanted the stitches to really pop. I end up adding a little bit more water right on the stitches themselves to kind of move the ink under it a little bit and kind of create a shadow for it. I wanted a more drastic contrast, so I end up adding a little bit more of the ink directly with a brush right around where the stitches are. Like I said, I really wanted them to pop since I will be using some dies to cut sections of it. So I wanted to make sure they're very visible. And now that I have added the shadows, I'm ready to dry it with my heat tool. And I run the brush with water one more time as I'm drying, just to help the colors kind of blend a little bit better. Next, I will be doing some die cutting using Altenews Caps Bold Alphabet die. I use the letters that spell out B-Day. And I use some of the leftover purple tape from earlier, and I secure them so they won't move as I run it through my die cutting machine. Next, I will be cutting a little bit off this panel. That way I can make it a little bit smaller than my card base, which is A2 size. That way I have a little bit of a frame showing the card base color. Since I am using watercolor paper, I usually choose a wet glue. I feel that it has a stronger adhesive and holds the paper weight a little bit better. And now I'm ready to add the letters that I die cut earlier. But first, I decided to add a little bit of black ink using my mini blending tool. That way, when I position it in front of the background, they can pop a little bit more. I also use some foam squares to help it give it dimension, and they can look like they're raised above the paper. And now that my letters are in place, I'm ready to create the little flag above that says happy. For this, I just look for a stamp set that has the word happy. In this case, I have scrapbook.com's Wordfetti Best Day Ever. And just stamp the little portion that says happy, cut it, and make a little flag from it. I use the same foam squares cut in half to adhere it. That way it can also be raised from the background. And for the last step, I wanted to add a little bit more texture. So I used this silk that matches the color of the cardstock. Of course, if you don't have a silk like this one, you can make your own by getting a similar ink color and diluting it with water to make it runny, and then use a brush to sprinkle it on your paper. And that was the last step to complete this card. As you can see, it's pretty simple to make, and the cool thing is that you can always change the colors and of course the message on your card, so you can make it for any occasion. I hope you guys enjoyed the tutorial. If you would like to see more of my projects, follow me on Instagram and YouTube at Glue Gun Diva. Thank you, Dina, for inviting me to do this guest tutorial, and I hope to see you guys soon. Take care.